Mateusz Morawiecki, thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to London. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the last time you were here was, well, diplomatically anyway,
yes,
when you were Prime Minister in 2023?
2023.
There's a video of you with Boris Johnson in Downing Street. What was it like visiting Boris when you were Prime Minister?
Thanks for having me first. The visit was very important because we were quite frequently on the line with Boris Johnson with regard to Ukraine and the Russian barbarian attack on Ukraine and the sanction packages and so on. Of course, this was already after Brexit, so the sanction packages agreed on the European Council level did not automatically apply to the United Kingdom, so we had to agree the details very often, and I'm very pleased with the stance of the United Kingdom government back then.
Yeah, that is something that Boris Johnson has earned plaudits from, being one of the first to arm Ukraine and so on. We'll talk about Ukraine and NATO and Donald Trump shortly. First of all, though, Boris Johnson, what was he like, do you think, as a leader? Because he has a reputation around the world of being a good leader, a very popular leader, not least in Ukraine. But here, he does get some criticism for presiding over an immigration policy that allowed more than 1 million people since 2021 to come to the UK. So,
and we disagreed on this, let me be very blunt, because we were of the view that all sovereign states have to be first in control of their borders. And this is why when President Putin and President Lukashenko tried to push people through the Belarusian-Polish border, instrumentalizing people from the Middle East, we said it cannot be, the case, and we have built a physical barrier 5.5 meters tall, and it stopped basically 99% of all the pushes, all the attempts were stopped. And I know that the policy of Boris Johnson and the government was a little bit different, so we differed on this in this aspect. And also the impact of illegal migration on the real economy, on social security system, on security on streets, and how safe people are. Like I can only say to all the Brits and all the people in the United Kingdom, come to Poland. Poland is one of the safest countries in the world.
It is, and it's funny you say that, because I know people who are now actively moving to Poland because of your border policy. You don't advocate, well, at least Donald Tusk may be differing from your premiership.
He's much softer than I was.
Yeah.
Like I can give you an example. Olaf Scholz and his police, they are making some pushbacks from Germany to Poland. I wouldn't allow for such behavior, that the German police is driving into Poland and is actually pushing the migrants into Poland, presumably because they came to Germany from the Polish territory, which is not always the case, or we don't know the details. So this is the policy of my government was very tough on this issue. Having said that, there were many migrant workers allowing to Poland, but on a completely different conditions.
Where were they from, those migrant workers?
From Ukraine, from Belarus, from those cultural circles which were very close to Poland, but also some from Philippines.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because in the UK, we have essentially, since Brexit, we have said goodbye to the hard-working Poles, your countrymen, the Eastern Europeans, the Latvians.
Well, 500,000 Poles came back to Poland when I was Prime Minister, so that's one of my major achievements, I have to tell you. Yeah.
Well, look, so they went home for a reason, and what's happened in the UK is, under the likes of Boris Johnson, I'll mention him again because he was a proponent for a lot of this, we have people from all around the world, many third world countries, illegal migration as well, lots of people coming from predominantly Islamic countries as well. What's the difference then between Eastern European migrants and migrants from the rest of the world? Why don't they, in your mind, assimilate or convene like Eastern Europeans?
Well, first of all, if there are migrants in such big numbers as they are here into the UK or in other countries, my first decision would be to assimilate them, to have as a strong and effective policy of assimilation as possible, and not allowing ghettos like which I saw around the German cities or around the French cities, ghettos of illegal migrants where police has no access to. This is beyond my imagination, because it shouldn't be like in a sovereign state. And my second point is that within the European Union, I was not agreeing on the migration pact. I actually rejected the migration pact in 2018, and then till the end of my government, we were not agreeing with the migration pact. And right now, a week after the new government started in December 2023, the migration pact was adopted by the European Commission and the European Union, which means that there will be more and more of those illegal migrants coming, probably also into Poland.
Can I call you Mateusz? Is that okay?
Yes.
Mateusz, let's try and get to the source of this. I don't know if you...
Yeah.
What is this illegal migration surge about? Because you said at CPAC, you said the European Union was operating an open doors policy for illegal migration. Some people blame it on climate change, or wars, of course, play a part. But do you think there is a wider or a bigger agenda behind this flood of illegal migration into Europe?
Yes, I think that some, in particular, liberal and left-wing governments, they take it as a kind of instrument of changing nations, changing societies, and this is happening in France, in particular in Germany. I know Germany quite well.
But why do they want to change the identity of nations?
Because they associate it with the right-wing parties in particular, and with the statehood and the focus on nation, on culture, on tradition. These are the bastions of the right-wing parties. So they probably want to destroy those bastions. That's one of one of the reasons.
And who do you think is behind it?
You mean they have this ideology. I mean the left-wing parties. They are established parties. Lots of media, NGOs, and they are quite powerful. I see this in Poland. Even if most of the society, most of our public opinion is against it, the liberal and leftist media have still again and again this attempt to push the migration pact and to push illegal migration into Poland.
Because we're at a stage now, in the UK especially, where if you raise concerns about wanting to protect, for example, in the UK, the southern border, where we have small boat arrivals, we have dinghies from France.
I know, yeah.
If you, on the left side of the argument, if you criticise that or raise concern about that, somehow that's considered racist, or we should be told that we need to open our arms to these people who are in need. Do you believe lots of these people coming, let's talk about the UK, coming to the UK are genuine refugees, asylum seekers, or are they economic migrants? What's your take?
No, most of them, in my opinion, I'm not an expert on this topic, but most of them are a kind of economic migrants from different African countries and Asian countries in particular. And this is, defending your own tradition and your own border. It's not at all racist. I wouldn't, agree with such an accusation at all. The opposite is the case. The country cannot defend its own nation if it is not able to defend its own borders at the same time. And what I saw here in the United Kingdom in last July and August was actually, something very difficult to explain to my friends in Poland.
What did you say?
Well, the punishment against all those people who were actively demonstrating against brutal crimes is an upside down world.
In the riots, the summer riots.
In the summer riots, because in the normal circumstances, what should have happened was it should be, an enormous focus of all the police and secret service and so on the groups and gangs which are attacking normal people. And at least to some extent, I don't want to exaggerate, but at least to some extent, what came through the media into Poland was that normal people were suffering, and the gangs were actually laughing at all the reaction of the government.
Yes, people did deserve to be in prison because some were burning down asylum hotels and kicking windows in.
That's for sure.
You are quite
Absolutely,
right in the fact that judges were saying, if you observe these riots from the sidelines, if you just attend and you watch the riots, you're going to get a punishment as well. And at the same time, we had the government saying, prison places, there aren't very many prison places. We had sex offenders and paedophiles being released from long sentences, and in replacement were these low-level people who attended these riots. So I take your points on that. That brings me on to Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, who of course presided over that. What's his reputation in Poland like? And how good a job do you think he's doing in the UK?
Well, to say something positive, his reputation over the past couple of months with regard to Ukraine and Russia and the new president of the United States is quite good in terms of, his maneuvering between the rocks, difficult situation, finding compromise, understanding that the next stage will require a coalition of the willing, and the long-lasting peace requires to be tough and vigilant at the same time towards the Kremlin. And we see the reaction of the Russians, and we see that they don't like it, which means that Keir Starmer is doing the right job.
Keir Starmer this morning says that he is entering the next stage of this coalition of the willing with boots on the ground in a peacekeeping situation in eastern Ukraine on the front line. Some would argue that is maybe a very dangerous precedent to set. Some would say in the UK, for example, we can't stop small boats coming across the channel, yet you want our depleted armed forces to go and square up to Russia. What is your take?
I wouldn't compare those two situations. The regular army is a regular army, and it's doing its job. I'm sure the British army is a very strong army, and building the coalition of the willing is what should happen these days. Turkish army, the French army, some support from the United States Army, US Army, very important as well. And the Polish army playing its role in, the Kaliningrad region, Suwałki region, and southeastern part of region where there is the whole logistic hub. And we are presiding over this logistic hub so that it is safe and secure. I think it's, the pieces of the puzzle are, more and more corresponding with each other, adjusted to each other.
I think, Mateusz, Poland puts the rest of NATO to shame. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Poland spends, 5% of GDP?
4.5%, the highest figure amongst all the NATO countries. And it happened.
Is that fair? Does Donald Trump have a point then when he berates the likes of Germany?
Well, the United States also spent some 4% on security and on defense, which actually indicates to all the analysts that there is no NATO without the United States. That full stop. Dedicating such a huge amount of money relative to GDP on defense was able because we were able to repair our budget after our predecessors, which are our successors as well. This is why I'm worried about the state of the budget in my country, because it was at the time when I was Prime Minister, we were able to lower the taxes, increase our social security and social expenditures, increase expenditures on defense, and at the same time lower our public debt by 3 percentage points, from 52 to 49. Within the 2 years period when the new government is presiding over the Polish budget, they have already increased the public debt from 49 to 59. So that's the difference between my government and the Tusk government.
Can I ask you then, Mateusz, why, if everything was going so well, and this is an honest question because my political knowledge of Poland is limited, if everything was going so well, and it sounds like you were doing a good job, why was Donald Tusk voted back into office?
Well, first of all, we gathered the highest number of votes, but the political system in Poland, electoral system, is different than that one in Britain, in the UK. But there is one word which is actually the most critical in that context: media. Media, and once more, media, mass media. 85-90% of the media are liberal, libertarian, and left and leftist, and all the NGOs. Now we know also supported from out of the US, USAID, NED, National Endowment for Democracy. So, and quite recently, we also learned that there were Russian money behind the emotional campaign, they called it 8 Stars campaign, very nasty words spreaded by Russia. So you can imagine, from the European Commission, they blocked the funds flowing to Poland. From the USA, the Biden administration, USAID, and from Russia, too many enemies at the same time.
Yeah, all courses. A war, if you want, a war without,
and
bullets
war
being
and
fired.
inflation. Yeah, sure.
So do you fear for your country then, for Poland? If Donald Tusk is back, he's a lot more liberal on borders, he's spending more. Do you fear that Poland will end up the same way perhaps as other European countries?
I'm quite upbeat that we are gonna be back sooner rather than later. There is a presidential election in Poland, very important in our political system. Even if we have a parliamentary cabinet type of system, President plays a very important role in our political system as well. Our candidate is doing very well actually, and I believe that he'll win in the May, and the second round is actually on the 1st of June this year.
Did you know there were Brits immigrating to Poland?
I have many friends from the United Kingdom immigrating to Poland. I know many of them.
Why do you think that is?
Actually, well, I was visiting London many times when I was president of the bank and having here roadshows, and many of them working in the city of London and so on, they see, first of all, new opportunities, the land of plenty, fantastic economic development, the fastest in the European Union apart from Malta and Cyprus, which are the tax heavens, basically. Yeah. That's the first reason, probably. And the second reason is because of the security on the streets. You can walk, young ladies, 10 p.m., no problem. One of the lowest crime rates in the world.
When was the last Islamic terror attack you had in Poland?
0. I don't remember any. None. Yeah.
Do you think when you hear statistics such as, there's new analysis today, story just breaking before you came in, actually.
Okay.
There's a Muslim majority neighbourhood in Leicester, which is a city in the Midlands, maybe 4th or 5th biggest city in the UK, where 43% of residents over the age of 16 speak little or no English. Why is that a problem?
Unacceptable. I wouldn't accept it as Prime Minister. This is why I'm saying that a good assimilation program, not only integration program, but assimilation program is critically important for all those migrants to play a positive role in our society. So this is where the British government should focus on.
Should it be their top priority? Because some argue that
I believe so.
The very culture and the fabric of British society is under attack, and if you haven't got British identity...
Yeah. I would agree with this. I know these are quite strong statements, but I would agree with this. I know similar things are happening in Sweden, in France and in Germany. the changes are, dramatic, and they are actually undermining the middle class as well. The middle class is the very fabric, the very backbone of each and every open and free society, and it should be, the core of all the policies of a good government. And
do you think our government understands that? Do you think Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, is conscious of that?
Even if he is, probably he doesn't apply. He's not sufficiently. He's not applying sufficient amount of resources to address all those issues. Because if you really believe that something is a priority, you have to restructure your budget and you have to redirect funds within your budget to address those issues.
Okay, Mateusz, can I ask you about your situation in Poland? Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you waived your immunity from prosecution to do with this 2020 mail-in ballot election.
Yeah, that's an example of madness. We do not have rule of law anymore in Poland. I'm now accused that I wanted to organize presidential elections, which is my duty according to Constitution. Yeah. And this was because my political opponents first agreed on the postal type of voting. This was just at the beginning of the COVID era.
So the pandemic,
Pandemic. Bavaria did it, South Korea did it, Canada did it, and some states in the United States did it. But my political opponents accused me of attempting to do presidential elections in such a form.
So is there a problem the fact you wanted to hold an election, or the fact you wanted to do it with mail-in ballots? Are they suggesting there was some skullduggery with mail-in ballots?
That's a very good question. Actually, they suggest that the latter is the case. That right. Preparing the elections in the format of the postal is something very would be inappropriate, even if 1 week before they voted for this for 1/3 of Polish population. So I'm not at all worried about this. This is just an example. If there is a judiciary system, even partially objective,
you could be in prison for 2 or 3 years.
I'm really not worried about this. But the real attempt of my political opponent is to accuse me and to eliminate me from the political life. So if there is an objective judiciary, I'm not worried about this.
Are we seeing the same thing in Brazil now with Bolsonaro?
And we are seeing
the same playbook.
Similar case, and also it's not only me. There are my colleagues from my political camp being attacked as well. Immunity are being taken away from them, and they are accused of crazy stuff.
Final question, because I know you are very pushed for time. J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, has said that Europe is risking civilisational suicide, and Germany in particular is killing itself by letting in millions of illegal migrants from countries that are totally culturally incompatible. Is he right?
Yes, he's right. I would agree with this.
Is it too late to turn the tide?
I believe it's never too late. Maybe the European Union is doing too little, too late right now. But I still believe that there is going to be this wake-up call, and most of nations of the European Union will wake up from the geopolitical slumber on the one hand, and from this civilization maze, which they cannot really, detect the way out of this jungle. I believe that, more and more people understand it, and Vox Populi, Vox Dei. People will be pushing the governments to change their approach. That's my hope.
Do you agree that the United States and Donald Trump is leading the way on this? They're 2 or 3 years ahead?
Clearly. When I see the policy of President Trump the last 2 months and first 2 months, they are serious about defending our Western civilization.
So you're hopeful?
I'm hopeful.
You're hopeful for the future of civilization, Western
Absolutely.
civilization.
And I'm even optimist, even if with all the flaws and failures and mistakes. I do believe that people in the Western civilization will eventually look around and see that we have to defend our civilization, Christian civilization. That's the most important task ahead of us.
Mateusz Morawiecki, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.